Right now, as you're watching this, there's a high probability that someone in your life is playing games with your emotions, your time, and your energy. And the most dangerous part? You might not even realize it's happening. You see, manipulation in modern dating and relationships has become so sophisticated, so subtle, that most men walk around completely blind to the psychological warfare being waged against them every single day. But here's what separates the men who get played from the men who command respect: the ability to recognize the game before it destroys you. What I'm about to share with you isn't just theory pulled from some dusty psychology textbook. This is battle-tested wisdom from decades of research in behavioral psychology, combined with insights from masters like Robert Greene, who wrote The Art of Seduction, and Dr. Robert Cialdini's groundbreaking work on influence and persuasion. These aren't just random observations. These are documented patterns of human behavior that, once you understand them, will make you virtually immune to emotional manipulation. The brutal truth is that we're living in an era where playing games has become the default mode of interaction. Social media has created a generation of people who treat relationships like a chess match, where every move is calculated for maximum psychological impact. The hot and cold behavior, the breadcrumbing, the emotional unavailability masked as mystery. These aren't accidents. They're strategies designed to keep you hooked, invested, and ultimately under someone else's control. But here's where most men make their first critical mistake. They assume that if someone is playing games, it means that person doesn't care about them. That's not always true. Sometimes people play games precisely because they do care, but they're operating from a place of fear, insecurity, or learned behavior patterns. The key isn't just identifying the games, it's understanding the psychology behind them so you can respond with strategic intelligence rather than emotional reactivity. Let me tell you something that will fundamentally shift how you view every interaction from this moment forward. Every single person you encounter is constantly communicating their intentions through their actions, not their words. Dr. Albert Mehrabian's research on communication showed us that only 7% of communication is actual words, while 55% is body language and 38% is tone of voice. But in the digital age, we need to expand this understanding to include behavioral patterns, response times, consistency, and what I call investment indicators. The first and most reliable sign that someone is playing games with you is inconsistency in their communication patterns. This isn't about someone having a busy day or dealing with legitimate life circumstances. This is about deliberate, calculated inconsistency designed to create emotional turbulence. One day they're texting you constantly, making you feel like you're the center of their universe, and the next day you're lucky to get a one-word response. This pattern isn't random. It's a psychological manipulation technique known as intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes gambling addictive. B.F. Skinner's experiments with rats showed that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest behavioral conditioning. When rewards come unpredictably, the subject becomes more obsessed, more desperate for the next hit of validation. In the context of human relationships, this translates to someone who gives you just enough attention to keep you invested, but never enough to give you security or peace of mind. They've essentially turned you into a psychological lab rat, and most men don't even realize they're in the maze. Here's how this plays out in real life. She responds to your texts immediately for 3 days, making you believe you have her complete attention and interest. Then suddenly, she takes 6 hours to respond to a simple question. When you ask about it, she has a perfectly reasonable explanation. She was busy with work, her phone died, she was with friends. The excuse isn't the problem. The pattern is. One isolated incident means nothing. A consistent pattern of hot and cold behavior is psychological manipulation, whether it's conscious or unconscious. The second major indicator that someone is playing games is what I call emotional breadcrumbing. This is when someone gives you just enough emotional intimacy to keep you hooked, but never enough to create a genuine connection. They'll share deep, personal stories that make you feel special and chosen, but they'll never follow through with corresponding actions that demonstrate real investment. They'll tell you how much you mean to them, but they won't make time for you. They'll say they've never felt this way about anyone before, but they won't introduce you to their friends or family. Dr. Helen Fisher, an anthropologist who has studied romantic love extensively, identified 3 brain systems involved in romantic attachment: lust, romantic love, and attachment. Game players are masters at activating the first two systems while deliberately avoiding the third. They'll create sexual tension and romantic fantasy, but they'll resist every attempt you make to build genuine attachment and security. This keeps you in a perpetual state of longing and uncertainty, which they interpret as passion and intensity. The third critical sign is the investment imbalance. In any healthy interaction, there should be a relatively balanced exchange of investment: time, energy, attention, and effort. When someone is playing games, they consistently position themselves as the prize to be won while contributing minimal effort to the dynamic. You find yourself always being the one to initiate contact, always being the one to make plans, always being the one to resolve conflicts or smooth over tension. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, writes about the importance of creating mystery and maintaining distance, but there's a crucial difference between strategic mystery and selfish manipulation. Strategic mystery is about not revealing everything about yourself too quickly, maintaining your own life and interests, and not being overly available. Selfish manipulation is about creating artificial scarcity to increase your perceived value while offering nothing of substance in return. Here's a practical way to measure investment balance. Track the ratio of who initiates contact over a 2-week period. If you're initiating contact more than 60% of the time, you're dealing with someone who is either not that interested or who is deliberately creating an imbalance to maintain psychological control. Either way, it's not a dynamic that serves your best interests. The fourth major red flag is what psychologists call future faking. This is when someone makes plans, promises, or creates expectations about future experiences together. But these promises never materialize into concrete action. They talk about the amazing trip you'll take together, the restaurant they want to try with you, the movie they can't wait to see with you. But when the time comes to actually make these things happen, there's always an excuse, a delay, or a complete avoidance of the topic. Future faking serves multiple psychological purposes for the game player. First, it creates the illusion of investment and serious intent without requiring any actual commitment. Second, it keeps you emotionally invested in a potential future rather than evaluating the present reality. Third, it allows them to gauge your level of interest and investment without reciprocating. When someone consistently talks about future plans but never follows through, they're essentially using your hopes and expectations as a way to control your present behavior. The fifth indicator is the emotional availability paradox. This is when someone is completely available for surface-level interactions, casual conversation, flirting, maybe even physical intimacy, but becomes mysteriously unavailable the moment things turn toward genuine emotional connection or relationship definition. They're masters at keeping things in the gray area, where you have just enough connection to stay interested but never enough clarity to make informed decisions about your own emotional investment. Dr. John Gottman's research on relationship success shows that emotional availability and responsiveness are among the strongest predictors of relationship longevity and satisfaction. When someone consistently deflects attempts at deeper connection while maintaining surface-level engagement, they're communicating that they want the benefits of your attention and investment without the responsibilities that come with genuine intimacy. Now, let's talk about the validation extraction pattern. This is perhaps the most insidious form of game playing because it feels so good in the moment. Someone showers you with attention, compliments, and seeming adoration. But you start to notice that this behavior coincides with specific circumstances. Maybe they just went through a breakup. Maybe they're feeling insecure about something in their life. Maybe they're bored or lonely. You become their emotional vending machine. They put in just enough interaction to get the validation they need, and then they disappear until they need another hit. The key to recognizing validation extraction is paying attention to the timing and context of someone's intense interest in you. If their attention spikes when they're going through difficult times and wanes when their life is going well, you're not dealing with genuine romantic interest. You're dealing with someone who uses you as an emotional regulation tool. Here's where most men make their second critical mistake. They assume that understanding these patterns means they should become cold, detached, or start playing games themselves. This is the scarcity mindset talking. The belief that you need to fight manipulation with manipulation, that you need to become a game player to succeed with game players. This approach will destroy your integrity and your ability to recognize and create genuine connections. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, taught us a far more powerful approach. Focus on what you can control and accept what you cannot. You cannot control whether someone chooses to play games with you, but you can control how you respond to those games. You cannot control whether someone is emotionally available, but you can control whether you choose to invest your time and energy in emotionally unavailable people. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This principle becomes your foundation for dealing with game players. Your strength doesn't come from outmaneuvering them or beating them at their own game. Your strength comes from your unwillingness to play games at all. So what do you actually do when you recognize these patterns? The first step is what I call strategic disengagement. This doesn't mean becoming rude or confrontational. It means matching their level of investment instead of trying to compensate for their lack of investment with your own overinvestment. If they take 6 hours to respond to your text, you don't need to respond immediately when they finally get back to you. If they cancel plans at the last minute, you don't immediately offer alternative plans. You simply accept their choices and respond accordingly. Strategic disengagement serves multiple purposes. First, it protects your own emotional energy and prevents you from falling into the intermittent reinforcement trap. Second, it communicates that you have standards and expectations without having to explicitly state them. Third, it often reveals someone's true intentions. People who are genuinely interested will increase their investment when they realize you're not going to chase them, while game players will often look for easier targets. The second strategy is what I call reality testing. This means evaluating someone's interest based solely on their actions, not their words or your interpretations of their actions. Create a simple mental scorecard. Are they making time for you? Are they following through on plans and promises? Are they introducing progressive levels of intimacy and commitment? Are they responding to your attempts at deeper connection? Are they investing their own time, energy, and resources into getting to know you? If the answer to most of these questions is no, then regardless of how much chemistry you feel or how much potential you see, you're dealing with someone who is not genuinely available for the kind of connection you want. Dr. Maya Angelou said it best: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. This doesn't mean being paranoid or cynical about everyone's motives. It means being realistic about what someone's behavior is actually communicating about their level of interest and availability. The third strategy is what psychologists call secure attachment behavior. Instead of trying to figure out the game or decode mixed signals, you simply communicate your own needs and expectations clearly and directly. You don't do this in a demanding or ultimatum-giving way. You do it in a matter-of-fact way that demonstrates self-respect and clarity about what you want. For example, instead of playing the texting game where you try to match their response time or analyze the meaning behind delayed responses, you simply communicate according to your own authentic timeline. If you want to text someone, you text them. If they don't respond in a reasonable time frame, you don't double text or chase. You simply note the information and adjust your expectations accordingly. Here's a crucial point that most dating advice gets wrong. The goal isn't to get game players to stop playing games with you. The goal is to identify game players quickly and efficiently, so you can redirect your energy toward people who are capable of and interested in genuine connection. Trying to reform a game player or prove your worth to someone who is emotionally unavailable is like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree. It's not impossible, but it's not a good use of anyone's time. Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability and connection shows us that genuine intimacy requires the courage to be vulnerable and the wisdom to be vulnerable with the right people. Game players, by definition, are not the right people. They use vulnerability as a weapon rather than treating it as the foundation for connection. Your job is not to become invulnerable, it's to become discerning about where you place your vulnerability. The fourth strategy is what I call abundance mindset maintenance. This is the practice of keeping your options open and your life full, regardless of what's happening with any one person. This isn't about playing the field or being emotionally unavailable yourself. It's about maintaining your own life, interests, friendships, and goals so that no single person becomes the sole source of your validation or happiness. When you have a full, satisfying life, independent of any romantic interest, you naturally become less susceptible to game playing because you're not desperate for anyone's attention or validation. You're interacting with people from a place of genuine interest rather than neediness, which completely changes the dynamic. Game players rely on your emotional dependency to maintain their control. When you remove that dependency, their games lose their power. The abundance mindset also makes you more attractive to people who are genuinely available for connection. Secure, emotionally healthy people are attracted to other secure, emotionally healthy people. When you're chasing after game players or trying to win over emotionally unavailable people, you're often signaling your own insecurity and scarcity mindset, which repels the very people you actually want to attract. Let's talk about the mirror test, one of the most reliable ways to determine someone's true intentions. Simply mirror their level of investment for a 2-week period. If they text you once a day, you text them once a day. If they make plans a week in advance, you make plans a week in advance. If they share personal information, you share personal information at the same level. If they initiate physical intimacy, you respond but don't escalate beyond their level of initiation. What you'll discover through this process is incredibly revealing. People who are genuinely interested will maintain or increase their investment when they see that you're not going to overinvest or chase. People who are playing games will often lose interest quickly because they're not getting the validation fix they're looking for. The mirror test removes the emotional drama and power dynamics from the equation and shows you exactly where you stand based on behavioral reciprocity. Here's something that might surprise you. Many people who play games aren't doing it maliciously. They're often operating from their own insecurities, past trauma, or learned behavioral patterns. This doesn't excuse the behavior, but understanding the psychology behind it can help you respond with wisdom rather than anger. Some people create emotional distance because they're afraid of being hurt. Some people play hard to get because they believe it makes them more attractive. Some people are inconsistent because they genuinely don't know what they want. The compassionate response to recognizing these patterns isn't to enable them or try to heal someone who isn't asking to be healed. The compassionate response is to maintain your own boundaries and standards while not taking their behavior personally. You can have empathy for someone's emotional struggles while still protecting your own emotional well-being. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in modern relationship dynamics: the difference between interest and availability. Someone can be very interested in you, attracted to you, enjoy your company, think about you often, while still being emotionally unavailable for the kind of relationship you want. Interest without availability creates the exact conditions for game playing, mixed signals, and emotional confusion. Dr. Attached authors Amir Levine and Rachel Heller explain that attachment styles play a huge role in how people approach relationships. Someone with an avoidant attachment style might be genuinely interested in you, but unable to tolerate the vulnerability that comes with deeper connection. Someone with an anxious attachment style might create drama and chaos because they equate intensity with intimacy. Understanding these patterns helps you make more informed decisions about who you invest your time and energy in. The key insight here is that you don't need to become a therapist or try to figure out someone's attachment style or psychological issues. You just need to evaluate whether their behavior, regardless of the underlying cause, is compatible with what you want in a relationship. If someone is unable to provide consistency, emotional availability, and progressive intimacy, regardless of their reasons, then they're not the right person for you at this time in their life. Let's address the elephant in the room. What about when you really like someone who is displaying these game-playing patterns? What about when you feel that rare, intense chemistry that makes you want to fight for the connection? This is where most men abandon all logic and strategy because they believe that this person is somehow different, somehow worth the emotional turmoil. Here's the hard truth. Intense chemistry is often a red flag, not a green light. Dr. Stan Tatkin, who developed the PACT method for couples therapy, explains that we're often most attracted to people who activate our nervous system in familiar ways, usually based on our early childhood experiences. If you grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, unpredictable, or had to be earned, you might find yourself intensely attracted to people who recreate those same dynamics. This doesn't mean you should only date people you feel lukewarm about. It means you should be extra cautious when you feel that overwhelming, can't eat, can't sleep attraction, because it might be your nervous system recognizing a familiar pattern rather than identifying a healthy partner. The healthiest relationships often begin with a steady, growing attraction based on compatibility, shared values, and consistent positive experiences together. When you find yourself making excuses for someone's game-playing behavior, They're just scared of getting hurt. They're not ready for anything serious right now. They have trust issues from their ex. You need to step back and ask yourself why you're more invested in their potential than they are. Your job is not to convince someone to want a relationship with you. Your job is to find someone who already wants what you want and is capable of creating it. The final strategy I want to share with you is what I call the walkaway test. This is your nuclear option, but it's also your most powerful tool for cutting through all the confusion and mixed signals. When you've identified game-playing patterns and given someone reasonable opportunities to step up, you simply remove your attention and investment completely. You don't make a big announcement about it. You don't try to explain why you're pulling back. You just quietly redirect your energy toward other areas of your life. The walkaway test serves multiple purposes. If someone was genuinely interested but just struggling with their own issues, removing your attention often motivates them to get clear about what they want and communicate more directly. If someone was just using you for validation or keeping you as a backup option, they'll typically just let you fade away without any effort to reconnect. Either way, you get the clarity you need to make informed decisions about your time and energy. Here's what separates men who command respect from men who get played. Men who command respect are willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't treat them with consistency, honesty, and genuine investment. They understand that their time and attention are valuable resources that should be invested wisely. They know that trying to convince someone to want them is a losing strategy that compromises their own self-worth. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius faced countless challenges in his role as leader of the Roman Empire, but he maintained his principles and dignity by focusing on what he could control: his own actions, decisions, and responses. In the context of modern dating and relationships, this translates to controlling your own standards, boundaries, and investment decisions rather than trying to control someone else's feelings or behavior. Remember, you're not trying to become manipulative or calculating. You're trying to become discerning and self-respecting. There's a huge difference between playing games and having standards. There's a huge difference between being manipulative and being strategic about where you invest your emotional energy. The goal isn't to become someone who uses people, it's to become someone who can't be used. When you master these principles, something amazing happens. You naturally attract people who are capable of genuine connection, while repelling people who are only interested in games and validation. You stop wasting months or years of your life trying to decode mixed signals or win over emotionally unavailable people. You start building relationships based on mutual respect, clear communication, and shared investment. This isn't just about romantic relationships. These same principles apply to friendships, business relationships, and any situation where someone might try to manipulate your emotions or exploit your good nature. Learning to recognize and respond to game-playing behavior is one of the most valuable life skills you can develop. The bottom line is this: you deserve relationships with people who are excited to be with you, who make time for you, who follow through on their promises, and who don't require you to guess how they feel about you. These people exist, but you'll never find them if you're constantly investing your energy in people who treat you as an option rather than a priority. Your attention and investment are precious resources. Guard them carefully, invest them wisely, and never, ever compromise your self-respect for someone who hasn't earned it through consistent, authentic action. The moment you truly internalize this mindset, you'll find that the games stop working on you, and the people worth your time will start stepping forward to claim it.